Hey friends, how's it going? Let me get my window all straightened out here. Hopefully everyone here is having a pleasant evening. I know I am. Why isn't that getting bigger? Oh, I'm in brand mode. I need to get out of that. There we go. Then now can I maximize? Maybe not. Okay, hold on. Sorry, I'm still new to this. Hopefully everyone's having a good evening. I see 5 people in the stream right now, so probably Angus, BS not accepted. Hello, Angus. Hello, Eddie. Howdy. How you doing? Next one's probably me. John Caden. Hello. Thank you for stopping by. I am going to try to do something tonight with this test stream. I want to scan through the modern day debates live stream that we just had. It just ended less than an hour ago. And I want to get it up into a window. I want to be able to scan through it. I want you guys to be able to hear it, and I want to have commentary on it. So that's the plan for tonight. So, and I have not prepared for this. I actually spent the debate ended about an hour ago. I spent about 30 minutes getting bookmarks together and stuff for talking points that I want to kind of go over. So I need to figure out how to do a custom layout here. So this will be fun. Edit the custom layout. See what else I can do here. So yeah, it's something I gotta do here. Custom layout 2. So you probably, has that changed me? Yeah, okay. Mark Caesar, thank you. Thank you for stopping by. Hopefully everyone's having a good night. I'm going to pour myself a really quick beer because alcohol will definitely make this go smoother. The other night, if you guys catch me on my stream, I was drinking some Georgetown Meowza. Tonight is Georgetown Bodhisattva. It's a local IPA, and it's quite good. Very tasty. Yeah, no problem, Angus. I'm going to be here for probably about an hour or two. While I work through some technical difficulties, I'm going to figure out a few things. So I want to do that, and I want to do a screen share. Move layer around. How do I turn this into a screen share layer? Where's Ember when I need him? Add item, camera slot, media slot. Do you need to upgrade your... Do I need to upgrade my live stream in order to, or my StreamYard in order to present? Does anybody know? Hey, Prag. Welcome. Well, let me see here. Hold on. Picture-in-picture layout. Press Shift 7 for picture-in-picture layout. Oh, that's probably just to select it. Screen layout. News layout. Press Shift F5 or Shift 5. Okay. And how do I add item, camera slot, media slot? A single media slot. This slot can display items from the present menu, such as slides, screenshots, and videos. Maximum of 1 per layout. What if I did just a present? I can present slides, a video file, extra camera. I can do a screen share. What happens if I do a screen share here? I can do a whole Chrome tab. Okay, maybe that'll work. Do a whole Chrome tab. Let's share that guy. Oh, hey, cool. That's how you do it. Oh, awesome. Okay, excellent, excellent, excellent. And then I guess you guys should be in real time seeing this stuff kind of get... Oh, no, that's not kind of what I want. Yeah. Okay. Almost there, guys. Just hang in there. How do I make this guy bigger? That's definitely my window. How can I zoom in and make it bigger? Nope. That's not it. Well, maybe I'll just make it bigger over here in the window. Go theater mode. If I stretch that bigger, yeah, that might work. Save that layout. Sure, why not? Custom layout 3. I don't care. Go ahead. All right, I think it should hopefully snap to where it should be, or no? Custom layout 3. There we go. That's better. It's not too bad. All right, and now the question is, if I play the video, can you guys hear it? So I'm going to move this over here. I'm going to play the video. Let me know if you hear it.
And then it says that you can't keep them for longer than 7 years. On the 7th year, they must be released, even if they haven't worked off.
Thumbs up, thumbs down. Hear it? No? I'll make it a little quieter and slow it down. Mark Caesar says, yep. Awesome. Okay, cool. Perfect. I'll put it on normal speed because I'm pretty sure nobody wants to hear these guys talk at twice the speed of sound. Cool. All right. So, yeah, let's talk about this a little bit. This will be my first kind of off the cuff live review of what went down tonight. It wasn't anything groundbreaking. It was basically two guys here. One guy's name is WitsitGetsIt, and that's the gentleman in the blue hat on the top left. He is a Christian. He has an interesting take on Christianity and the Bible. He doesn't necessarily accept the Bible wholesale, but the parts that he does, he takes very literally. Like, he believes in a Noah's flood, which I probably also entails that he also believes in a literal Adam and Eve. He made the comment tonight that not all parts of the Bible are accurate or infallible. So he doesn't necessarily accept the entire Bible as true. And then he also threw in later on that he takes the book of Enoch seriously, which is the book of Enoch is a book of the Bible, or I'm sorry, take that back. It was a book or a set of manuscripts that was rejected from the main Bible canon. So he has this weird hybrid of accepting parts of the Bible and also accepting things like the book of Enoch, which didn't make it into the traditional Bible canon. So that makes it really hard to determine what this guy actually believes or not, because he's kind of outside your scope of your typical Christian, because you really don't have any idea of what text he's drawing his conclusions from. But anyway, so that's WitsitGetsIt. He's on the top left. Skylar Fiction is on the top right. He's listed as agnostic, but I believe James said that was a mislabel and he apologized for it. Skylar is a non-Christian theist. Skylar a few times said that he does believe in a God. His God is not the Christian God. It is not the God that drowned the earth in a biblical flood, so on and so forth. So I don't know either of these guys. This is the first time I've seen either of them. And they had a discussion on, was biblical slavery immoral? And, of course, the Christian is in the position of having to defend his God. So, yeah, of course, biblical slavery was moral from his point of view. Skylar, being the non-Christian, is the one that's saying, no, it was not immoral. And we're not going to go too much into the conversation between them on that, because it was civil. Things didn't get too out of hand. It got a little confrontational. They were talking over each other a lot, kind of melted your face a little bit listening to it. But there were some good tidbits here and there, which, if we come across any of them as we kind of scrub through the video, we'll go over it. But I have some bookmarks here. Oh, and I love it when a Christian comes onto a debate like this, because I like asking, like Pine Creek Doug says, I like asking very simple questions that seem to always be very difficult for the Christian to answer. And the best questions, I think, for kind of getting a Christian into that position is just simple yes or no questions. Yes, no, I don't know responses is all that's required. But the respondent always seems to go beyond that, always seems to have to do a tap dance a lot of times they'll do a tap dance and not even give you an answer. And other times they'll do a tap dance until you finally lock them into, you have to answer me yes or no, or I don't know, because that's just simply what the question demands. Unfortunately, through a super chat, that's not really possible because by the time they're done answering the question, any follow-ups, you just have to kind of just roll with it. But it's good practice for when you're in a live discussion, formulating questions, listening to the response, and then you can figure out, okay, how do I respond to this response? So anyway, let's go ahead and start getting into it. Like I said, I don't know either of these guys. Skylar, I think, had better points. I don't think Witsit made very good points. He danced around a lot. Skylar very much pointed out that pretty much whenever Witsit was quoting something from the Bible, he would just simply says, the Bible says. No concrete verse to go to confirm or deny that the Bible actually says that. And it was a lot of like rapid fire, just the Bible says this, the Bible says this, the Bible says this, and you put it all together, and then that this is what we can infer from it. And it was not too convincing in my opinion. But anyway, let's go to 122.15, and this is where I asked my first super chat. And if you look at the description of this stream, I didn't really empty my wallet. I probably super chatted like 5 times because I was having such a good time. But most of them were like $2 super chats, like nothing too major. Typically during a stream, I'll dump $10 if I'm really enjoying it. So I managed to break this one up into like 5 super chats of $2 each. Anyway, let's make sure. Okay, 122.15, and this is where I got my first super chat in. And I was not satisfied with this guy's answer here. 122.15. And then I'll go ahead and post the question, because here's the problem with modern day debates, and I made a comment during the stream about this, but I didn't get a response. Like other live streams, when there's a super chat, they'll usually show the super chat, text and all, so that everybody can look at and understand what's being discussed. But James just simply reads it. There's no visual display of it, so it's very difficult. If the question's complex, the answer and the audience will lose track very easily. So I'll go ahead and paste that in here. This was the first question I asked. I got a typo. Explicitly. All right. American Cuban. Eric, when will you do a video on how to get over the fear of hell? It's deconstruction's biggest obstacle. That's a good question, Cuban. I would love to do a video about that. I unfortunately would not be coming from a position where I had to deal with that. Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe in hell. I've never had the hell doctrine rammed down my throat as a kid. My wife, on the other hand, she was raised Catholic, so she would deal with something like that. If I were to do a video, I would probably draw upon her and others to get their insights on that, because I would not be coming from a position of having knowledge about that. As much as I would love to talk about that, because it's a good point. It is deconstruction's biggest obstacle. It's Christianity's biggest stick, and it's effective for a reason. All right. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and play the video here. We'll pause it after my question. I'll explain a little bit why I asked that specific question, and then we'll go into his response. This is the first time I've really went over, other than my initial hearing of it, first time going over this response. So we're just going to kind of just work through it, and we'll see how it goes.
Scoundrel says, Witsit, could God have explicitly prohibited slavery in the same way that he commanded males to cut off their penis, or I should say the tip of their penis? If yes, why didn't he?
So actually, the comment was tip of their junk, because YouTube censors the word penis, and I couldn't send the super chat if I had a censored word in there. Anyway, the question: could God have explicitly prohibited slavery in the same way he commanded males to cut off the tips of their penises? It might sound like a bizarre question, but this question's formulated for Christians who want to talk about free will, want to talk about how God had to work around these systems man had put into place, and that God was like somehow limited by, God was somehow limited by man's limitations. It's not God's fault for not being able to address the problem. It's man's fault that God had to lower his strategy, had to dumb down his communication to man in order to work around the problem that of man just simply being too low or too stupid or too sinful in order to fully comprehend God's grand, glorious truths. And that's what people use to defend slavery in the Bible. You can ask a Christian, why is there slavery in the Bible? Why didn't God just prohibit it? Oh, well, God had to work around the system that man had into place. He couldn't just outright tell man to not have slaves because man would have rejected it. But then you have other parts of the Bible where God straight up just tells you, hey, cut off the tip of your junk. Do it. And that was accepted. I would think if we had a conversation between cutting off tips of your genitals compared to owning other people as property, which would be the harder sell? Hey, mutilate yourself, or hey, that whole economy and market around slavery. Let's not do that. Let's do something else. In fact, here's a replacement strategy. Here's a replacement that we can have to replace that system and just get it out of the equation right away. But no, that's not what God did. God, instead of commanding, hey, don't own slaves, God instead said, hey, let's legislate this. Here are the rules for slavery. Here's what you should and shouldn't do. In fact, here are two separate sets of rules. One for your fellow Hebrews, your fellow Jews, which is you can own them, but only for up to 7 years at a time. You have to release them on the year of Jubilee. When you do release them, you have to, give them the means to live and all those things. But, oh, hey, actually, on second thought, when you release them, their wife and children, those still belong to you, but you can release the male slave. Oh, the male slave doesn't want to leave his wife and children? Okay, well, hey, now you can take him to town, drive a nail through their ear, and now they're yours forever. That's your Hebrew set of slaves. Your non-Hebrew set of slaves, the ones that are basically foreign, the ones that come from other nations, you can buy those in marketplaces in other nations, and you can keep them forever. You can pass them on to your children as inheritance. And so, yeah, you have these two sets of rules. Oh, and the foreign slaves as well, not only buying them from markets, conquering other nations as well. Numbers 31, 17, and 18. God commands Moses and the Israelites to go in, kill all the male, kill all the men, kill all the women, kill all the non-virgin girls, kill all the male children, but all the virgin girls keep for yourself, which at many points during this debate, Witsit basically said, tried to paint it as, well, this was a mercy to these girls because they were just going to suffer and die without their families that the Israelites, slaughtered. It was a mercy in order to bring them in and all that. So, but anyway, that's kind of the thing behind the question. Let's listen to his answer and let's kind of wade through it, because I'll give you a spoiler. He did not answer simply yes, no, and I don't know, which is all this question demands. I can understand the desire to elaborate, and it's fine if you want to elaborate on yes or a no, but at least answer yes or no first. B.S. Lewis, welcome. Thanks for coming in. All right, let's listen to what he had to say. And we might have to listen to it twice because he says a lot here.
Okay, because this is actually guidelines to a significantly much more egregious and barbaric culture of slavery. And
so stopping right there. As I said, he does not start with a yes, no, and I don't know, which is what he should have done. But he's immediately trying to frame this as a minor evil to somehow avoid a larger evil. It's not simply God could just simply not explicitly prohibit it. God had to have slavery in order to prevent something bigger, which we'll see what he says.
And it's saying, do not be like that of the heathens around you. If you're going to have someone work for you, they have to agree to do it. They can leave at any point in time. You have to treat them better than your family.
So they have to not treat their slaves like the heathen around them. So they have to have a special set of rules for their slaves, completely missing the point that slavery is just terrible altogether. The fact that God gave the Hebrews or the Israelites some specialer code of conduct around their slaves, different from that of the heathens around them, is somehow supposed to make slavery okay. And the first point he made was they have to willingly enter your service, which Witsit, did the girls who were the children of the slaughtered parents of the Amalekites, not the Amalekites, I'm sorry, the Midianites, were they willingly entering into this arrangement? The slaves bought at markets in foreign cities, were they willingly entering into this arrangement? Do you think, if it was cases of indentured servitude, do you think they're really willingly entering into indentured servitude? If you're down to one option, and that's indentured servitude, and that's the last thing you have compared to starving and dying, is that really a choice? Are these people really entering into this willingly? I highly doubt that. And this is him trying to water down and trying to paint a different picture of what was actually happening. If this was actually happening, he's trying to paint a different picture of what the Bible describes, and also what realistically probably would have happened if this was the case.
Actually, no, I don't think that this is. I think if you apply it today.
Notice he says, no, I don't, and then he kind of came back a little bit. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'll stop stopping as much, but this is the problem with questions like this with Christians. They'll start moving towards an answer, but then they realize that answer is problematic, so they got to back away from it. And if they go to the other answer, they realize that answer is problematic. They got to back away from that as well. Anyway, we'll keep on going here.
It's not wrong. If you help someone out that's down on their luck, and you front them money, or you give them room and board, but you say, look, you can't just stay at my house for nothing. You have to work here.
You can't stay at my house for nothing. You have to work here. Imagine that being told to one of the Midianite girls. 6-year-old, 7-year-old Midianite girl. Her family was just murdered. Her village was burnt down. She was drawn in a wagon back to the Israelite encampment. And then the guy that now owns her says, you can't stay here for free. Stay in my house. I feed you for free. You got to work for this. Yikes.
It's not immoral. The only time that you can claim.
And now he just says it's not immoral. That's not the question I asked. I asked, could God explicitly prohibit slavery? And he's now addressing the morality of it, which I understand that's the debate topic here, but that's not the question I asked. We're now we're past the debate. We're in the question and answer topic or section at the end. That's not the question I asked.
Claim it's immoral is to just use the catchword or the buzz phrase slavery and then not actually proper.
It's not a buzzword. It's what your Bible uses. It's the word your text uses. It's not a buzzword.
Really define the context.
You got it. And Oliver.
All right. So that was the end of that. So how many words was that? He probably said maybe 100, 150 words. There was a no in there, which he backed away from. And then I think he said no again. And it wasn't really an answer to my question. I think an honest answer from him would have been, I don't know. But if his God is really all-loving, all-knowing, and all-powerful, then the answer is yes. God could have done that. God could explicitly prohibit slavery. The same way he explicitly commands men to cut off the tips of their junk. A true believer, a guy who does believe that his God is all-knowing and all-loving and all-powerful would say, yes, God could do that. Of course, that's a problem because God supposedly didn't do that. And, a la the problem of evil. Anyway, let me catch up on chats here. Eddie Dean with a $5 super chat. Thanks, man. Witsit kept mentioning consent in the Bible, but never citing a verse. Yeah, he did that a ton. I don't know how any Christian can try to justify in any way biblical slavery. Yeah, and the funny thing is, if Witsit was the Christian and he was on the attack on something in the Book of Islam that was supposedly immoral, he would be all over that in the Quran. So, yeah, that's the problem with having to accept a religion like Christianity, lock, stock, and barrel, is that You either are a liberal Christian who is at that point picking and choosing what you want and don't want to believe, or you're a biblical literalist or something closer to what Witsit is, and you have to accept everything. Everything that you accept, you have to accept. And if God sanctioned and legislated slavery, well, hey, something's got to be right about it. There's got to be some little crevice in there that you can kind of squeeze yourself into. And this is the narrow moral part of slavery. But no, everything else was wrong around it. But this specific context, this specific slavery is moral because my God commanded it. And yeah, it's really, it makes our jobs easier. It makes the job of the counter apologist or the person on the attack much easier, because it's, the Christian has to twist himself into knots in order to hang on and defend this belief, while, you know, the one that doesn't believe it isn't bound by all those things. Yeah, so cool. Thank you, Eddie. I really appreciate the super chat. I'll make back some of my money that I spent on super chats over in that other stream. BS Lewis, I think I said hi already. Nice to see you here. Mark Caesar, I would rather not be a slave back then. Yeah, I don't think I would either. I mean, I don't think anybody wants to be a slave at any time, but even back then, if you're a Hebrew slave, maybe 7 years you're out. If the Jubilee thing is observed, if you aren't tricked by your master into falling in love and marrying a woman and having kids, you could get yourself out probably. Although the master could beat you as much as he wants, as long as he doesn't take out your teeth, your eyes, and as long as you're able to get up and walk after a day or two. Hey, no problem. Theoretically, under the rules in Exodus, I could own a slave and I could beat that slave every week to the point where I know that he'll walk in again in a day or two. That's fine. I could beat that slave every day for 7 years as long as he can get up and walk, and that's allowed under those rules. Because either those rules, because if those rules were given by God, they're entirely insufficient to protect the actual slave. They're there to protect the property owner, which is the slave owner. BS not accepted. Imagine the horror. A young girl has watched her family being slaughtered and then gets examined to see if she's a virgin. Yeah. That, when I did my God could not kill children video a couple months ago, when I was on Joe's case in that video about, basically, I was basically painting him as one of the Israelite soldiers marauding and cutting his way into a family home. And I believe I told him, I said, Joe, would you cut your way into a family's home, killing the father, the mother, the son? And then at that point I had a choice. I could have gone this route about finding a girl and checking for her virginity, but I thought maybe that's a little, I wanted to be stinging, but I think that might have been a little bit too far. So I instead said walking over to the baby's crib, checking the baby's sex, and then slitting its throat upon discovering it's a male, which is also still very edgy. And then when he turns to the little girl, like, you know, little girl, 6, 7, likely a virgin. So I didn't have to go into that, but that is exactly how the story is depicted. Like, okay, you find a 5-year-old girl, you're like, okay, you're a marauding, conquering Israelite, and you just cut your way into a Midianite village. You've killed all the adults, because that's easy. You've killed all the men, all the boys, that's easy. You find a 6-year-old girl, okay, that's easy too. Take her to the wagon, she's ours. You find a 12-year-old girl, 13-year-old girl, that's where it gets a little iffy. That's where it gets, And that's what God commanded. God commanded virgins only. So how do they confirm those virgins? It's disgusting. It's horrible. Gotta love, folks. We meet again, Eric. Leanne Richter, accompanied by her birthday bats. Yes. Leanne just, I was in Guyla's Granny's channel earlier today, and Leanne stopped by and said hi. And then she and Guyla's Granny had a little bit of a discussion on, what was it? Some music. Voltaire versus Birthday Bats was like a song. I can't remember. I'll have to go back and look at it. But yeah, hello, Leanne. Nice to see you. Sky Wardlores, hi, hello. Yes, good to see you. Nitty, my man, how are you doing? Good to see you stopping by. Voltaire, yes. Emerson Biggins, if you drove up to Dimwitsit in your new red car, he would argue that your car was any color other than red. That's a good analogy, because I was thinking the same exact thing. Well, not because I was thinking the same exact thing. We think alike, Biggins. The topic of morality. I really despise the question, is morality objective or subjective? Because morality is a monolith. It is a system of multiple parts all working together that we call morality. A lot like a car, like your comment there. Asking, is your morality subjective, or is morality subjective or objective, is the same way of asking, is like asking, is your car made out of metal or plastic? Well, my car's made out of both. No. Is your car made out of metal or plastic? It's either metal or not metal, or you know. Well, no, you're addressing an amalgamation of multiple things, and morality is just like that. Morality is a monolith. If you break down morality, and this is not original to me, I got this off of I think Paulogia's channel. Paulogia mentions that morality can be examined to be objective or subjective once you break it down into two things: the goals that you want to reach, and then the methods or the actions at which you use to reach those goals. Once you break down morality down to that point, now you can break it up. You can say, I have subjective goals. Like a subjective goal would be, I would like to see kids not be killed. You know, in my world, on my planet, I don't want to see kids get killed. That's a subjective goal. But now that I have that subjective goal in place, now I can evaluate objectively the actions that will either get me closer to that goal or further away from that goal. So really, morality is both. If you want to talk about morality as a whole, it is both objective and subjective. It just depends on what part of that moral system you're talking about, the goals or the actions that lead you to those goals. So in the case of, you know, I don't want to see kids needlessly die. That's my goal there. I don't want to see kids needlessly die. And then you can look at, you know, I don't know, for example, school shootings. Should we promote school shootings, or should we diminish school shootings? Should we reduce the frequency of them? Obviously, one contributes to the goal and one goes against the goal. So then you can use those objectives, that objective analysis, in order to determine whether those actions are objectively moral or not. So that's kind of how I like to look at it. But yeah. Cool. So yeah, thanks Biggins. That was a really good observation. Alma, welcome. Nice to see you. Alma's really cool. I got to hang out with her a few nights ago in Neil's 604 Atheist chat after the after party. So it was very fun. Nice to see you, Alma. Yes, don't forget to like the stream. If you like, share, subscribe, even drop a comment. Just simply say, I'm dropping a comment for the algorithm. It all helps. So yeah, thank you very much. Nitty, I just tell believers, sure, my morals aren't ultimate, so what? That's another good point too. Like what is an ultimate moral anyway? Like Christians want ultimate morality, ultimate dictates from their supreme being, but what is that? Like just because it comes from a different life form, it's ultimate? If it comes from the creator of the universe, it's ultimate? Aren't God's moral goals themselves subjective? Like people try to say, they'll say subjective morality, or I'm sorry, take that back. They'll say objective things are things that exist outside of human minds, but they're like kind of baking in that special pleading for their God in there. Something that's truly subjective or objective is outside of any mind. And so if a God is up there and he's determining what moral goals should be, those moral goals are subjective, as that God is the subject. So yeah, they want to dress up these things from God and like the special dressing to make it immune to your criticisms, but still applicable to what they want it to apply to. Wannabe Scholar, hello, welcome. I'm almost at the end of the chat. We'll get back to the video. BS not accepted. But don't Christians mean objective because it comes from a God and is external to us? Yes, I think we just went over that. Wannabe Scholar, what's my thoughts on inspiring philosophy? I haven't watched too much of his stuff, honestly. Anything that I know about him, I've watched through other channels like Pelagia, so I probably can't get too much of an unbiased opinion about him. But from what I've seen, he seems to be the most genuine of the apologists that I know of. I can definitely think of apologists that are, I don't know, much less genuine or much less kind of rigorous in their logic. But I don't know much about him, and I should probably resolve that. I've been kind of focusing on Cameron Batuzzi. I've been having some fun watching some of his streams and his Twitter. It's kind of a mess right now. We can probably go into that a little later. What's my favorite biblical topic to study? Favorite biblical topic to study? Philly, 3000, welcome. Hey, man. Nice to see you. Favorite biblical topic to study? I don't know. That's a good question. It's kind of like saying, what's your favorite dish at a restaurant that you hate? The easy ones are really fun. Slavery, slaughtering villages. It's always easy to analyze. I'm very much, not really biblical topics, but I'm really digging gospel history. I've learned a lot over the past couple years about how the gospels were put together and the problems around it. The fact that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were not written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. That there was 30, 40 plus years of oral tradition between the events of Jesus and the first gospel being penned. The fact that Paul basically during that time of oral tradition inserted himself into the equation, claimed he had a vision, and then steered the religion in the direction that he wanted. So the whole history around that is fascinating, because if you kind of look at that and you look at this mess of a timeline and you go, how can a God have possibly come up with this? It's full of holes. Anyone who has an honest amount of doubt or skepticism cannot accept this to be true. And if a God values honesty and us using the logic that he supposedly gave us, how can we accept this as true when there's these many problems in it? So, anywho, okay, so caught up in chat. Thanks everyone for showing up. How many people we got here? Hey, 18. Nice. Welcome everyone. 18 viewers and 18 likes. I love you guys. You're doing your job. Thank you so much. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Okay, some context for this one. This is at 128.07. Some context for this one. So they got into a little bit away from slavery and kind of more into morals in general. And they started talking about Noah's flood. And essentially, Skylar made a very Tracy Harris-esque comment, basically saying, the God I worship does not drown babies. Very clear distinction. Your God drowns babies, mine does not. And Witsit, drawing upon, I believe, the Book of Enoch, which is not Bible canon, but drawing upon the Book of Enoch, I think, he was drawn upon something, I think it was the Book of Enoch, was trying to establish, probably, not definitely, probably, all babies on the planet by the time Noah's flood occurred were Nephilim hybrids. Because if you look in previous books of the Bible, not in the book of Genesis, well, it's in the book of Genesis because that's where the flood is, but earlier in the book of Genesis, during the time of Enoch, there were Nephilim, which were basically angel-human hybrids. So, actually, I got a great, hold on, one second. This is a book called My Book of Bible Stories. This is a Jehovah's Witness publication, and it's basically just Bible stories watered down for children. There's a awesome, and they got some really crazy illustrations in here, but maybe it's a different book I'm thinking of. Yeah, it is. Anyway, here's a picture of the Nephilim. This is the Nephilim. Sorry, my camera's, come on, camera. Maybe I keep my face in here because it's like autofocusing on faces right now. There we go. So this is the Nephilim. Sorry, I'm trying. Let's try that. This is the Nephilim basically stealing fruit and stuff from people. So the Nephilim were angelic human hybrids. Essentially, the angels were looking down on the earth and going, hey, those women look mighty fine. And apparently angels manifested as physical humans on the planet, got into sexual relations with the humans, and the offspring were angel-human hybrids that were basically terrorizing the planet, which is supposedly one of the reasons why God decided to flood the planet was the Nephilim were running around and causing problems. Witsit was trying to establish that every single baby on the planet was a Nephilim hybrid. And that's how he justified his God drowning babies. Some problems with that. First problem is that's not in the Bible. he's probably drawn upon the Book of Enoch, but that's not in the text. Yeah, there were Nephilim there, but the Bible never says that the Nephilim had proliferated to the point where literally only Noah's family was the only pure-blood humans left on the planet. And even if the Bible did say that, how is that logistically possible? Like, wouldn't Noah's extended family not be Nephilim hybrid? Would Noah's line not be a Nephilim hybrid and everyone else could be? Like, how does this even work? There would be crossbreeding in there somewhere. And that also doesn't address the fact that God decides to drown babies, even though, like, sure, okay, they're Nephilim, human hybrids. Let's just say for a moment that, okay, that somehow justifies their destruction. Why drown them? Why can't God just Thanos snap them out of existence? Why this exercise of getting Noah to build an ark for decades, telling Noah to preach, which I think I was told by Jehovah's Witnesses, my religion, that Noah preached, but I was actually trying to look for the scriptures to support that. I couldn't find it, so I'm not sure if that's true or not. But, which raises another question, if Noah was told to preach and everyone else are Nephilim, that's a pointless exercise because none of them are going to be saved anyway. But Noah takes decades to build the ark, preaches, spends a year floating on choppy waters, bad food, in a box full of animals, taking craps and shits every day and having to clean up all that every day, subsiding the waters, resurrecting plants, all this. And only for 100, 150 years later for the problem to just re-arise of sin and problems on the planet. And according to Witsit, the flood didn't get all the Nephilim hybrids. Somehow the Nephilim hybrids survived the flood, or angels came down and made more. He wasn't very clear about that. But even by his own words, the flood didn't fix that problem. Why did God do all of this to not solve the problem? God could have just snapped them all away and just been done with it. In fact, God could have just snapped all the adults away. Why not just snap all the adults away, cleanse the genetics of the babies, and then the babies would have... Noah would have a legion of children that he could raise up to be God-fearing adults, and the world would be infinitely better according to Bible perspective. Nitty says they floated on the backs of dinosaurs. Yeah, there had been like some buoyant dinosaurs back then, right? 4,000 years ago. Nitty's channeling some Ken Ham there. It's great. Let's see here. Go back through the chat. Oh, I see Alma talking about Light Yagami. I love me some Death Note. Was more effective at killing humans than Yahweh. Yeah. At least Light Yagami tried not to kill innocents at first. After he got plenty corrupted, he didn't really care at the end. But at first, he didn't want collateral damage. God doesn't care. Collateral damage, no problem. It makes a more spectacular story. See here. Okay, let's go back to the video. Go back to the video here. So yeah, I asked basically. So anyway, that was the context for the next question that I asked. He said that there were Nephilim human hybrids, and then I asked if every baby was a genetic hybrid. He did give me a solid answer, but I think he leaned towards yes on that.
Do I think it's wrong under my moral system, I would say.
You got it.
Yep.
This one coming in from Skeptics and Scoundrels says, was every baby during the flood a genetic hybrid?
Because remember, even if it was justified to kill genetic hybrid babies, the only way to justify a flood in that case would be for every single living thing on the planet to be genetic hybrid.
That's actually a debate, but yeah, some say yes, and that's why you look at where it says that Noah was the only pure one left, along with his family, as if they were actually the only pure.
Again, no scripture to support this about him being pure. He might mention one here pretty soon, I recall correctly, but I don't think it mentions anything about genetic purity or anything like that. But you can see he's leaning into the yes answer.
Or genetics left, which is pretty crazy. So I don't know. That is a scriptural debate, but some argue yes, that Noah was the only pure-blooded one left.
Well, how would they still exist after the flood then?
That's another debate. So some claim that potentially one of the wives on the ship, that even that they survived by escaping somewhere else. Also that they were still metaphysically unbound and they just made women again. They just
So
made
God failed in his attempt to kill them all, is what you're saying.
No,
So yeah, so there you go. So he's definitely leaning into the yes. He did not mention any scholars that talk about it being no. He thinks that it was likely that everyone there was genetic hybrids. And then Skylar makes a very good observation that he failed. If God did this in order to get rid of the Nephilim, Witsit disagrees that it was effective because, according to Witsit, there were Nephilim afterwards as well. Hillel, Finder, good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. Cool. Okay. So yeah, that was another kind of weird moment there. 1 minute 30 seconds. This is where Skylar was channeling Tracy Harris, which I really enjoyed. So we'll just kind of take a look at that.
There's an agnostic. That was not meant to mislead you. I just that's the last I remember. This one coming in from, and sorry folks for the confusion on that. My old brain just sometimes it this one going in.
The easy way to remember, James, is my God doesn't drown children. The Christian God does. It's a real simple distinction. But anyways, go ahead.
This one coming in from Skeptics and Scoundrels says with.
Okay, so when I say he's channeling Tracy Harris, Tracy had a really stinging quote years ago, basically saying, if I could stop a child from getting raped, I would. That's the difference between me and your God. Very factual and clear cut. Like Tracy said, if I was in this situation, I would do this. Your God did not. And there's no denying it. It's a factual statement. Tracy, judging by the type of person Tracy is, taking out her word, she likely would do her best and do whatever she could to stop something like that from happening. The Christian God, if real, demonstrably does not do that. So Skylar channeling that, basically saying, my God doesn't drown babies. It's undeniable. Like, Christian God drowns babies. The God Skylar describes does not. How do you argue against that? And you see that Witsit didn't even try, because it's just a fact at that point. All right. What's up with the chat? The only time it makes sense for the flood like that is when the earth was in Pangea. Yeah, some young earth creationists, some flood literalists will actually agree with you, Philly. They will actually tell you that the flood is what drove the continents apart. The flood is what carved the Grand Canyon, created the Alps, created Mount Everest, and drove all the continents apart, like hundreds or thousands of miles apart. Of course, they ignore things like the heat problem, which Erica Gutsick-Gibbon goes into quite a lot. Essentially, the heat generated by moving the continents like that, like literally meters per second or even meters per minute during the flood, the heat generated from that would turn the Earth into a ball of plasma, essentially. Gutsick-Gibbon measures the heat in terms of hydrogen bombs per square kilometer, about how much heat that would generate. And that's a young earth creationist, a flood literalist who wants to say something like that. All they can do at that point is just hand wave it away with God magic. Oh, God split the continents with the flood, And he just took care of the heat. He suspended physics for that moment. And at that point, once the conversation gets to that point, forget it. They're talking magic. Yeah, so. Okay, cool. Let's move on. Oh yeah, he was about to mention my next comment, which was... Here was another one. I believe this one was also another question that he did not clearly answer. I'll go ahead and paste it in the chat. Another simple yes or no question. No elaboration needed. You can just simply say yes, no, I don't know, but for some reason it's really hard. So the question was, could God have written or inspired the Bible more clearly than it currently is? Because at this point in the debate, there was a ton of back and forth between Witsit and Skylar over Hebrew and translation and what scripture says what, and this scripture says that, and this scripture says this, putting things together. There was a ton of argument around just how to interpret the words. And at a few points, Skylar very much was going into, this is what the Bible literally says. And then Witsit was trying to get into the Hebrew and says, no, this is what the scripture really says, beyond the face value of the scripture. So I asked the question, could God have done a better job to write the Bible? With a follow-up, at least to the point where all agree on what it says, and Witsit would not need to defend it. So let's see what Witsit has to say about it.
Witsit. Could God have written and inspired the Bible more clearly than it is, at least to the point where all agree on what it says, and you wouldn't need to defend it?
I think that the Hebrew...
So immediately, no, yes, no, I don't know. It'll be a song and dance.
Is pretty precise, because the way the Hebrew is a certain word. You can't even use the word or understand what it's saying at all, because it can mean so many things unless you consider context. So if you had a...
So Witsit, if that's the case, if you have to look at context of Hebrew and there's multiple ways to interpret it, why did God choose Hebrew? Why did he choose a language where this is a problem? And he still hasn't answered my question. So yeah, let's look at this.
Stuck to the original language, it's pretty precise in what it means. There's some speculation here and there, but English translations have just muddied the water beyond comprehension. So
okay, so the Hebrew's not precise. He thinks it's precise in some areas, even though there's still disagreement around that. And then he shifts to English, which, again, if Hebrew was bad and English is worse, then why did God set up his method of communication to use both Hebrew and English? Why couldn't God invent a new language that is legible, readable by humans, and accurately and precisely transmit his message to people? Something that is like Latin wasn't around at the time, but Latin's a dead language now. It's a dead language. It's unchanging. Why couldn't God just invent a new, precise, dead language, give all humans the ability to read it, and then write his book in that dead language? Like, that would, if you had to go the method of using books to transmit your message to humans, there's other ways, but it had to be a book. Why was Hebrew and English, later on English, used? Why not just simply create a language that would do the job? We have humans inventing languages. Esperanto is a human created language. It was created, I forget the guy's name, but it was created decades ago as a language to be used in international diplomacy. Like, it was a language meant to remove the problems of all these different languages that we have, ambiguity and mistranslations and missing words for other words in other languages. Like, it was supposed to be a solution to that problem. A guy did that. If a guy could do that, a God could, right? So anyway, let's let him finish up here.
I think it's a beautiful thing, though, because I think that means you have to truly want to know what the truth is.
Sorry. Okay.
Seek it out diligently and understand that be humble enough to know that you don't know all the answers. I think it's kind of beautiful that people don't know all the answers. If you could just get all the answers by reading a book, I mean, it's about sincerity. So
he answered a different question. He completely went off. And this is this is partially, I don't want to say James's fault, but it's the format's fault. This question should be on text on the screen so that everybody can see it. But anyway, going back to Witsit, that wasn't the question I asked. He didn't answer the original question. He started talking about Hebrew, started talking about how bad English is, and then he went off into a tangent about how beautiful it is the way it is. Doesn't answer the question. Could God have written or inspired the Bible more clear than it is? He's all powerful. This method has problems. Surely God could have had a perfect solution. So I would say yes. I don't know is an okay answer too. I always accept an answer if I don't know unless I know the person's lying to me. But yeah, of course God could have done this better. He's God. What does God speak? How does God speak to the angels? Do they have a language? If God speaks to the angels and tells them what to do, and they're always doing his will perfectly, that means they have some type of perfect form of communication. Why doesn't God use that or something similar with humans? If he can do it with angels, he could do it with humans, but he doesn't. And then this last one here, the the follow-up question was basically like, you're wasting hours and hours of your time defending this when your God could have just, with a few tweaks to his initial plan, could have done a better job. And now nobody has to waste their time arguing about this. We can just simply accept truth for what it is because it's clear and precise. But no, God was lazy with his plan and implementation, and now we're here wasting hours of our life talking about it, which is okay. I'm having fun doing it. Okay, let me catch up on chat. I might be saying some bad stuff here and people might be yelling at me. Alma says, if God can do that kind of magic to move continents, then he would have just killed the humans by thinking about it. And that would have been enough. Yep. Just Thanos snap them out of existence. That would have been fairly impressive. Like, imagine all the land and real estate and buildings left behind that could be populated and used by the new generation of of God-fearing people spawned off of Noah. Like, did you have to wipe away all the infrastructure? Did you have to wipe away all the animals and kill all the trees and plants and stuff? Yeah. God's the king of collateral damage. It has to be showy. Like, has to have a panache. Grandiose. Wannabe Scholar says, God isn't the author of confusion until he is. Then things get very confusing. Yeah, very confusing. Thousands of religions, thousands of denominations per religion, wars, people fighting. Yeah, God could have done so much better if he had tried. Hillel says, it will always be fascinating to me that young earth creationists are so willing for a God to do miracles. They want everything to be as natural as possible because they know how successful science has been. Yes. Yeah. They obviously value science. They obviously value the scientific method. They value evidence. They value demonstration. They value those things. And whenever possible, that they're able, like, let's say they're able to demonstrate a historical fact of the Bible, they will use science and evidence and archaeology and all that to demonstrate it. That's the first thing they go to. But when that fails, then they go to magical means. And yeah, and they understand the value of it. Without science, I would not be able to talk into this high-tech computerized system, use electricity and silicone and copper and beam what I'm saying into your ears right now. Science made this possible. Science made all this possible. We're all alive because of science. If we didn't have medical science, probably none of us would be here right now. We'd probably have a lot less people on the planet. Yeah, and like I said, yeah, young earth creationists, they see the value there. They know that. And they try to avoid magic wherever possible, but every once in a while, like with the heat problem, all they can do is just say God magic, and at that point they lose the argument. Okay. Yeah, Hillel, that's a good comment as well. I forgot who it was recently. Somebody said recently that, like, their idea, I think it was Thomas Westbrook, Holy Kool-Aid. I think he said, or was it Prophet Azad? I can't remember. I'm sorry. My brain's crap at this. God could set up billboards around the planet that just update on their own with his latest commandments. Like, hey, treat LGBTQ people with respect. Or, oh, hey, don't go to war. He could have billboards in Russia. Hey, don't invade other countries. He could have billboards in Uganda. Treat LGBTQ people with respect. Don't outlaw them. Don't torment them or persecute them. He could have just signs that just regularly update that everyone can understand. Clear, precise, direct communication. He doesn't. It's a dusty old book that is put together by committee, written based off of hearsay and tales by authors that we can't identify. And that's the best he could do. Okay, I'm kind of skipping to the ends. I don't want to get too far behind. The Pope could do that if he wanted to. If the Pope really is God's channel of communication and what God tells the Pope is accurate, the Pope could easily set up billboards around the planet and update them. That would be impressive. Yeah, Caesar. Yeah. I was just using random examples. I'm by no means saying one country's immune or innocent of these things. Another. The United States has a pretty shameful, problematic history, to say the least. Okay, so let's go to the next timestamp. I don't want to get too far away from what we're doing here. 17 people watching, 27 likes. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate this. I must be doing something right. People haven't fled this stream like a burning building, so I think I'm doing okay. All right, next one is... oh, okay. So I missed one later on. So Eddie, I don't know if you're still here. Eddie dropped a super chat, and Eddie asked Witsit if Nephilim people are still on the planet. Because according to Witsit, after the flood, the Nephilim came back, and they were still a problem afterwards. So Eddie, great question, Eddie. And I had my follow-up question ready to go into super chat if he answered it, but for some reason, I think James has overlooked your super chat. But Eddie asked, "Are there still Nephilim hybrid people on the planet?" That got skipped. When I realized it got skipped, I then asked it myself later on, which we're not going to go to it because I can't find the timestamp. But he basically says, "I don't know." Honest answer, I guess. I can't fault him for that kind of answer. If he said yes, I was going to follow up with a snarky question of, well, if there are still Nephilim hybrids on the planet, Witsit, how do you know that you're not one of them? And kind of see how he would react to that. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. Oh, well, maybe it happened in a different timeline. Okay, then my final super chat to him after that whole thing. B.S. Lewis and I kind of had a back and forth about it a little bit, but... the conversation got deep into mass shootings and guns, like completely way off topic of biblical slavery, the question of its morality. It got deep and heated into guns. And I think at one point, I think it was insinuated that Witsit was a flat earther. He was a flat earther. It was insinuated he was a young earth creationist and a flat earther. He suspiciously kind of waved off the flat earther thing and said, "Yes, I am a young earth creationist," said it proudly. And so we were all like, is he a young earth? I mean, is he a flat earther? And so BS said he was, I think, and Dr. Tapioca said he was. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to ask it because I really want to hear him say it. And this is interesting because this is the only question he answered straight with a yes or no.
I'm going to say it to you.
Okay.
You're unimpressive.
This one from...
Must have lied about the geologist, huh?
Skeptics and Scoundrel says, Witsit, are you a flat earther?
Yeah, the Earth is provably a stationary topographical plane.
Oh my God, he is capable of doing it. He is capable of answering a yes or a no. This one was the question he answered, which tells me a couple things.
I don't conform to consensus because of an intellectual ineptitude. I just seek the truth.
This is what the scary thing about our future is.
So he not loudly, I'm sorry, I don't want to elaborate. He straightforwardly just gave you an answer. Yes, I am a flat earther. I believe there is evidence that the earth is flat. Bravo for his honesty. Finally, after 5 questions, I got a straight answer. But the interesting thing is that at how quickly and easily he answered that question and how much he had to dance around the other questions, which tells me that he has more confidence in his flat earth theory than he does in all the other stuff he mentions in the Bible. He has more confidence in it, and he's less embarrassed about it. That almost felt like there was no embarrassment around the flat earth thing, because he's probably convinced himself that the evidence is concrete on that. So he's able to simply say, yeah, I believe I am a flat earther. I believe that there is evidence for it. But for everything else, it was a song and a dance. It was not either not addressing the question or answering questions that weren't asked, or just simply ignoring the question, just saying a lot of stuff and moving on. Which tells me he has more confidence in flat earth. He's more proud about it. That's kind of what I gathered from it. And I think just about any flat earther would have to believe that the earth was created at that point, because you're basically, most flat earthers say, yeah, the planets are all spherical. We have lots of examples of spherical objects, massive objects in the solar system and in the galaxy. Earth is different, and by saying Earth is different, that means the means by which it came about is different. So I believe most of them usually will cling to some type of creation explanation, and it's usually Christianity. I don't think I've seen a flat earther or heard of a flat earther that isn't a Christian or a young Earth creationist. On top of that, Hillel with some Hebrew. I cannot read that. Let me throw that into Google Translate. Let me see what you're saying to me. Google Translate. Hebrew to English. Obviously, this is the best. Obviously, this is the best method of communication. Considering Hillel that I had to go to Google, I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that. But that was a great joke. Thank you. Yeah, if only Google was available back when the Bible was written, like how different would things be? You just have a wiki, not even a wiki. You just have somebody upload their book, and it goes to like a repository where the name and the date and the source IP and everything is just tracked, put together. The Bible, you can perfectly track back to what writer, when, all that. Strange that the Bible isn't written now when things can be more accurately recorded and transmitted. All right. Let's check more here. So yeah, thank you, Hillel. Thank you for the $2 super chat and that fine joke. I really appreciate it. Biblical cosmology assumes a flat earth with a dome overhead. Yeah, that's one of the things I've heard about it. Dome overhead, the firmament. They explain gravity by essentially perpetual acceleration. Like real science explains gravity as, the bending of space-time around massive objects, which, essentially attract other massive objects into it. The flat Earth model, if the Earth is flat and traveling through space, and you're standing on the surface that's being traveled against, once you're accelerated to the point at which the Earth is moving, you're essentially weightless again at that point, because you're no longer any more of that energy being transferred into you. In order for gravity to remain constant like it is, that means the Earth has to keep on accelerating at a constant rate. And yeah, like that's just bizarre explanations around that. Earth domes, firmaments, constant acceleration. The ice walls. Antarctica is really a wall around the flat Earth, keeping all the water in. Yeah, bizarre stuff. I wonder, B.S. Lewis says, I wonder how much the Bible has contributed to his belief, other BS. His other BS beliefs? Yeah, I mean, he's very flexible with his interpretations of the Bible. So yeah, who knows? Hillel fighter, it is what we do. It's what we do. A little trolling. I agree. We are all scoundrels here. That is kind of the reason why I chose skeptics and scoundrels, because be skeptical but also be a little scoundrelly as well. So yes, I like it. And Hillel, is that the proper pronunciation? Hillel? No, it's not Hillel. Hillel. Maybe phonetically write it out for me, and it's just so I make sure I got it. Yeah, if Google was available back then, religions not be so popular. Yeah, real-time fact-checking. Jesus said what? It's not what my security camera shows. My security camera shows him starting that fight in that bar. Wasn't the other way around. Along the Bible line, if only God has thought to give everyone revelation of his will directly, instead of the whole anonymous writer of old book middleman thing. Yeah. At that point, a Christian will just throw up free will, which Witt did that a few times. That seems to be kind of a buzzword. Free will. Whenever you hit a point where, why didn't God do this better? Free will. Which it makes no sense. I mean, free will exists in heaven, right? The angels and the demons all have concrete knowledge of God's existence. They all have concrete knowledge of what God wants. The demons chose to disobey anyway because they have free will. Why aren't humans capable of that? Why can't humans be given concrete examples and evidence that God exists and maintain their free will? Yeah, makes no sense. Which kind of goes into the whole... I've kind of been thinking about this lately, about how fast and loose Christians are with their language when it comes to their God. We have an all-loving God, but because God drowns babies, it's some other love other than what we're used to as humans. Or God is all-knowing, but he doesn't know everything, so he has some type of other knowledge that is foreign to humans. It's kind of like a car salesman doing a bait and switch on you. You are drawn in by this idea of an all-loving God, but then when you start analyzing it, now that love is switched out with something else. You can't criticize, you can't analyze based on the love that you were told that he exhibits. It has to be analyzed via some other love, like in mathematics, it'd be like love prime. Like something different is where you criticize. But for the selling point, it's just love, the fuzzy human love that we all know and appreciate. So, yeah. Yeah, and the free will thing is similar. Angels and demons can have free will, but and knowledge of God, but for some reason humans can't. It's a bait and switch. Inconsistencies with their explanations. Firmament means, I'm guessing firmament means flat. No, Calvin. From my understanding, this is kind of in the Bible too, in Genesis. The belief is before the flood, where all that water came from was actually that water was suspended above the earth in what's called the firmament. It's basically like a water layer around the planet. And this is how young earth creationists or biblical literalists try to explain where all that water came from. It essentially was suspended water above the planet. And when the floodgates of the heavens were opened, when the flood occurred, it was basically God just releasing the firmament to fall down onto the planet. So young earth creationists, I'm sorry, take that back. Flat earthers, I believe, still believe that a firmament is up there. And why we can't detect it, why we can't send probes up to it, why we can't see it is up to them to explain. But I believe that's kind of what they talk about. Which biblical demon is my favorite? Yeah, I talked about this with Godless Granny earlier today. Legion, I think, is going to be the most spectacular one. But if you look at it, though, Legion is actually the weakest of the demon accounts in the Bible. So, demon accounts in the Bible, you have one demon possessing one person, giving them headaches or seizures or speaking in demonic tongues or whatever. Okay, so that's one demon, one person, fairly straightforward. Legion, on the other hand, Legion, I believe the way he introduced himself, it basically it's like Legion, essentially Legion for Mass Effect. It is many demons in one. And when Jesus came across Legion, Legion was affecting one human. So you had many demons taking their time to affect one human. So now you have multiple demons doing the job of one demon. Not a very good allocation of human resources, or demonic resources rather. And essentially Jesus, he begged Jesus not to send him out of the child or whoever Legion was possessing. So Jesus, for some reason, obliging Legion, sent Legion into a herd of pigs, at which moment the pigs went over a cliff and died. And that's the story. So Legion was just weird. Yeah. Legion is just a demon version of carpooling. Yeah. That's a great way of saying it. So what's up with that, Legion? Like, multiple demons possessing one person? Why? One demon could do the job. Why does it take multiple? Like, why? Doesn't make sense. So anyway, on that topic, we're going to be talking about that in a week. Is it the 20th or the 20th? I have 2 live streams coming up with David from Deep Drinks Podcast. Let me find it. Google Calendar. I want to get my dates straight so you guys are informed about it. Okay. Sunday, the 23rd at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. So that's West Coast, U.S. West Coast time, 6:30. I'm going to be doing a live stream with David from Deep Drinks Podcast, and we're going to do a demon tier list video where we are going to take the stories of demons from the Bible and rank them into tier lists. And I probably already gave it away. Legion is probably the most interesting of those stories. So we're going to bring in some other demon anecdotes to kind of liven up the competition pool. So we're going to be doing that on the 23rd at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. And then the following day, I will be appearing on David's channel on Deep Drinks just for a fun conversation about whatever. So that's the next day. That'll be at 6 p.m. on the 24th. So that's what we got planned. Cool. All right. I think there was maybe 1 or 2 other things I wanted to look at in the video here. Nothing related to any of the super chats that I sent in. We're already done with that. Minute 34:08. I think Witsit says some very factually inaccurate things about morality, the consequences of morality, and also the gay lifestyle. He says some very, very bad things about that. What was it again? 134:08. Let's listen to him talk about this.
i.e., how immoral acts distort character. Why do we see negative effects if not immoral?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think it's for me. It's like basically one of the evidences for objective morality is when you do immoral things, you have negative natural consequences for those things.
So a result of an objective morality is when you do negative moral things, you have negative consequences. So if I rob a bank and get away with it and I enjoy the money for the rest of my life, how is that a negative consequence? Here's another anecdote. When I was 10, my family took me to a restaurant and they had an arcade there and I had no money. So when nobody was looking, I swiped a waitress's tip off her table. This is 30 years ago now, and I remember this very clearly. I swiped a waitress's tip off her table and went and play video games with it. I never got caught. No one ever found out. In fact, this is the first time I'm publicly talking about it. Nothing bad's ever happened to me. It probably sounds like I'm inviting something bad to happen to me. 30 years ago, I regret doing it. It was wrong. I was a stupid 10-year-old. But nothing bad happened to me. Like, this reality doesn't line up with his claims about you do something morally wrong and you will reap negative consequences. It it doesn't happen. The universe isn't perfectly just like that.
Well, except for things like being gay, attracted to the same sex.
You die sooner.
No, you don't.
Yeah, you do.
Being attracted to the same sex doesn't make you die sooner.
Scientifically speaking, if you practice homosexual sex, you die sooner.
No. But
Okay, this is where he. Yeah, Hillel, send the police after me. I'll pay back that. What, 30 years ago? I think I maybe swiped $2, $3 off that table. Not that that makes it better. You're going to spend thousands of dollars in government resources to come and get me for a $3 crime. Anyway, back to what Witsit just said. Witsit just said that they're having a disagreement over terminology, but essentially what Witsit said was homosexuals that practice homosexual sex don't live as long. And he's just throwing that out there as if it's some fact, some scientifically proven fact. Completely ignoring the other stuff around that. Completely ignoring that when the AIDS pandemic hit, the government didn't respond to it like they would a normal pandemic, which caused, and AIDS is something that affected homosexuals at a greater degree than it did straight people, but it wasn't responded to as a normal pandemic. We have, back in the day, 20, 30 years ago, clinics would not treat homosexuals, or gay people would have a much harder time going to a clinic to talk about their medical needs because they were in the closet, or because they had to keep this a secret from friends and family. They didn't want to get out. It was taboo and prohibited. Those things affect your life expectancy. Those things can all add up and keep you from living the life that you could have, because not getting treated for illness will definitely affect your life expectancy. Not having a social circle, or being able to be yourself, or associate and be your genuine self, can negatively affect your mental state and can negatively affect your health. There's all kinds of factors around this. But Witsit is just plainly saying, practice homosexual sex and your life expectancy goes down. Bullshit. Complete bullshit. Catch up on chat here. It wasn't wrong because you were a child and you didn't know better. I think as a child, I did know better. I knew what I was doing was wrong. But being a child and being stupid, it just, something in my brain just overrided my morality on that. And I wanted to play games more than I wanted to be a good person in that moment. And I'm not defending that. I'm not saying that was the right thing. It's not something I would like to do now, but it's something I did, and I can look back on it and learn from it and become a better person. Hillel Finder says $2. Oh wait, Hillel, you did how to mention to say your name, and I completely went over it. Hill-El. Okay, Hill-El. Hill-El. Is that like a Kryptonian name, like Kal-El? Hill-El. Are you from Krypton? Okay, $2 plus interest has got to be worth something by now. Yeah, what would $2 plus interest be? So I said 30 years ago. Let's do a compound interest calculator. So had that waitress taking that, I'll even be generous. If that waitress took the $3 that I swiped, monthly contribution is 0. 30 years. Estimated interest rate. What was prime interest rate in 1990? Prime interest rate in 1990. 9.5%. So that's prime interest rate according to JP Morgan Chase. Let's say there's no way somebody would invest at 9.5%. That's probably the wrong type of search engine or a search term. Okay, savings account interest rate 1990. Let's just say she threw it in the bank between 4 and 5%. Okay, let's give her 5%. Let's see how much money I denied that waitress. It's after 30 years at 5% compound is probably gonna be a good amount. Compound frequency annually. I guess, yeah. Calculate. Oh, it's not too bad. Be about $13 today. So if that waitress tracks me down, and I will fess up and I will pay her $13 that I owe her. Yeah, so BS not accepted says gay and trans are not catching. Gay and trans are not catching, no matter what Christians and the right-wingers say. Gay and trans are not catching. I'm sorry, BS, I'm not parsing that. Can you clarify? Carrie Ann says, but organized religion cannot control you if you're happy with yourself and your reasoning. Yes, that's going to be the topic of one of my future videos, is how religion generates need inside of you. If you're not a needy person, religion has a really hard time getting its claws into you. If you're a needy person, if you need to have everlasting life, if you need to be blissful in heaven, if you need to avoid eternal torment in hell, if you need to feel morally superior to others, Christianity's got you covered. Like, you can fit so much need satisfaction into this car and slap the hood. Yeah, if you're a needy person, Christianity gets claws into you. If you're not a needy person, then Christianity first tries to generate that need inside of you by telling you stories about heaven or telling you stories about hell. In the Middle Ages, threatening to kill you if you don't conform to their version of Christianity. Yeah, so that's going to be a topic of a future video, I think, in the near future. Kind of an anecdote. Along those lines too, religion really thrives. Like, getting a person to adopt their religion is really effective if they are in an emotionally compromised state. A loved one has died. You had a major breakup. You just experienced financial devastation. All manners of moments in your life, because we all have them. We all have moments in our life where things just fall to shit. And that's when a religion can swoop in and take care of that for you. I was out in door-to-door ministry 15 years ago, and I was out with a guy named, I'll call him Dave. Dave was an older guy, very fatherly. He was nice. I liked him. He was a good man. But we knocked on the door, and this girl, late teens, early 20 something, she opened the door and she was like sobbing, like crying. And immediately Dave's fatherly instincts kind of kicked in, because he was a dad. And, hey, what's going on? What's wrong? And apparently, I don't remember very clearly, but I think she had a breakup with her boyfriend, and she like literally walked home barefoot. And she just got home, and it was like 8 a.m. And once that was out of the way, that's when Dave pulled out the booklet that we were trying to place that day. And he in a real fatherly, gentle voice, "Do you want to learn about God?" And the poor girl, dealing with all this crap already, now has these two guys at her door. I was there too. I was, for the most part, keeping quiet. Leanne, Leanne's comment right here. This is a moment of cringe in my history. But just whipping out that booklet. Do you want to learn about God? And just exploiting that emotional vulnerability, exploiting that need. And Dave's not doing this maliciously. He's not like scheming like, oh yes, we got her at a good moment. Dave genuinely thought he's offering her help. Dave himself was duped to think he was helping somebody with this strategy. But all he was doing was inserting himself and religion into somebody else's business when it had no business being there. So anyway, along those lines, I'm going to be doing a video on how religion exploits need, and I will probably be going back over that anecdote in more detail, doing that. Hell sounds like Miami. Yeah, Miami is pretty hellish in the summer. I went down to Fort Lauderdale, not quite Miami, but I went down to Fort Lauderdale in the middle of the summer for hurricane relief work, and I did 2 weeks of roofing. I think this was for Hurricane Katrina or something like that. Hurricane Katrina like smashed New Orleans, but it also wrecked Florida. I went down there in the summer and did 2 weeks of roofing, and it was just miserable. It was definitely hellish temperatures. Oh, you know what I should be doing? I'm sorry. You see, this is how bad I am at streaming. Let me pull back up. I need to pull up the comments, and I could be highlighting comments for you guys, so you guys can read it too, instead of just listening to my terrible voice. I'll move this over here. Hell sounds like Miami. There you go. Okay, yeah. See, I gotta do more streamer things like this, especially for super chats, because super chats deserve recognition. BS Accepted says they say it is a choice, and they act as if you can catch it by not being near someone, or they can teach it. I believe that's back going over. We're talking about gay and trans. Okay, gay and trans. Oh, so like it's not contagious. You can't catch it by being near somebody. I remember AIDS, the scare around AIDS. They were trying to determine whether it was like airborne or not. But I've never heard about gay and trans being, if that's what you're saying, gay and trans being like contagions. That's fascinating. If that's the case. Okay, let me. Oh, I lost the window here. I need a new computer so bad. This is getting really bad. Eddie Dean says, what happens to non-believers after death according to Jehovah's Witnesses? Yeah, so Jehovah's Witnesses have no doctrine of hell. There's essentially no afterlife for now. So Jehovah's Witnesses internally are broken up into two groups. There is the little flock and the great crowd. The little flock is essentially 144,000 people, men and women, who are chosen by God to essentially go to heaven and to rule as kings and priests alongside Christ. Only 144,000, literally 144,000 people. And these people have existed ever since Christ existed, just throughout time. So, or just throughout the past 2,000 years. So when somebody is anointed and they die, they're essentially immediately brought up to heaven to start ruling as kings and priests. If they happen to survive to Armageddon, at that point they will be raptured to heaven to fill their role. That's the 144,000 little flock. Everyone else, the great crowd, which is from Revelation, great crowd that no man is able to number, essentially, according to their doctrine, an indeterminate amount of people that are followers of the true religion but not anointed as members of the little flock, they will eventually live on a paradise earth after Armageddon. If you die before then, you're just simply essentially I forget the exact words they use, but essentially you're dead. You're sleeping in death. You're gone, essentially annihilated, but you reside in God's memory. God remembers you. And when Armageddon is over and the new paradise system has begun, that's when God will begin resurrecting people out of his memory, and they will enjoy life on earth. So if you die before Armageddon and you're not one of the anointed, you're just dead. I probably shouldn't say annihilated, because that's annihilationists are basically just like, yeah, you're gone forever. You're not gone forever. You're gone, but you're in God's memory, and he will resurrect you. And that's only for most of those people who God accepts into that new system, that paradise earth. If for some reason you are accepted, and like let's say you blaspheme the Holy Spirit, or you've worked against God's organization on the planet, and you're actively working against God's plan, like I am, when you die, you're annihilated. You're gone forever. God doesn't remember you. You're just gone. There's no hellfire. There's no afterlife. There's no torment. It is just annihilation, and you're done. So going back to the very beginning of the stream, that's why I can't really speak very much on the topic of getting over hell, because I've never had to get over hell. The worst thing that can happen to you as a witness, as Jehovah's Witness, the worst thing that can happen to you is just eternal annihilation. No pain, nothing. You're just gone. It's as if you were never born. So yeah, that's what and by leaving, that's what I accepted. I accepted the worst that the religion had to offer, which wasn't that bad. I mean, I don't want to live forever. Can you imagine living forever on a paradise earth, billions of years? You've done everything 100 times over, and you're just beginning? Like, yeah, that sounds pretty terrible. Yeah, Leanne, we talked about that a little bit. Flashbacks to my religious life, cringe moments, all kinds of cringe moments. I should probably have a self-deprecating episode where I just go over all my embarrassing crap that I went through. Just get it all out of my system. My reputation would take a hit though, because I've done some stupid, embarrassing things in the name of my religion. I have taken some stupid and embarrassing things in the name of my religion. All that. BS not accepted. Yeah, I do have an email address. It's actually in the about section of my YouTube channel, but it's just skepticsandscoundrels@gmail.com. In fact, I could probably put that into the chat. I'll put my Twitter into the chat again, and I'll put my my email into the chat. So my Twitter is that, and then let me get it. skepticsandscoundrels@gmail.com. Yes. So there you go. BS not accepted. Feel free to. Oh, that reminds me, BS. Thank you. I should show you guys something here once I'm done with the chat. Well, maybe I'll save it for next time. I'll save it for my next stream. I want to be prepared for it. But somebody out of the blue just sent me a logo for my channel, and I think it's so awesome that they did that. It was very nice of them. I'll bring that up next time. Just the guy's name was Thomas. Yeah, I'll prepare a nice little showcase of it next time. I want to give it the proper treatment. I don't want to just do it in passing. Hillel. As a Kryptonian, I can 100% confirm that not only is being gay a choice, but it is the right choice. Word. That's the way they act. Yep. How come JW picture families in their literature as 50s style? Yeah. They're always a decade or two behind current fashion. It's kind of like the Amish. Like the Amish don't move forward in technology and style and time quite as fast as the Witnesses do, but the Witnesses are very much they're separate from the world. They're not beholden to the world's fads and the world's lifestyles and what's currently like the thing in the world. So they're always a couple decades behind in style. They're always a couple decades behind in everything. What's stylish now will be what the Witnesses will be wearing in about 20 years. It's their way of being separate, I guess. But yeah, you can look into the literature. In fact, here, pull back up my book of Bible stories. I could probably find just a page. I remember one story in here. I haven't opened this book in forever too, but I remember vividly all of these images in here. It was probably the very, very last one. It was the very, very last story telling you about how you should study more and please God. Yep, here we go. All right. Number 115. Yeah, and 115, 116. So story 115. A New Paradise on Earth. And so this is a children's book, so it's about 3 paragraphs. I would say probably about 300 words. But you can see I got to keep my face here so it stays in focus. But you can see the clothes that they're wearing. This book was published in the late 70s, I think. So you can see that they're very much wearing, like, that kid's almost in bell bottoms, not quite. And then the next one, 113. or 116. How we can live forever. And then they have a picture of a bunch of kids reading this very book that I'm holding with the Holy Bible on the ground. And you can see that they're wearing very 50s, 60s clothes. Yeah, polyester clothes. They're sweating bullets. They're not sweating bullets what God will do to them if they fail to to please him. They're sweating bullets because of the clothing they wear. Hillel says, I had a JW stop by a few weeks back while I was out. Yeah, I'm still waiting for them to stop by my house. I've lived in this house for 5 years. I have yet to have a JW visit, which I really can't wait. That's going to be fun. I should get some type of recording device ready. I had a couple Mormons stop by, and we had a good conversation. But when witnesses come by, just going to not reveal I'm an ex-JW, and I'm just going to ask them very simple, very straightforward questions, and we'll see how they do. Mark Caesar says, as you're saying these things, can you believe that you ever believe them? I can believe that I believe them. Yeah, because I did believe. It was one of those beliefs where it was a belief based on trust of my parents, trust of the people in my congregation, trust in the people that are in charge. And that's essentially the power dynamic. That's essentially the dynamic that you're taught to operate under when you're born and raised in this religion. You just simply trust. You simply trust that the adults know what they're talking about. So I believed what they told me, very uncritically. And it wasn't until my mid-20s when I started waking up and started really questioning whether what I was being told was true or not. And once that happened, it was like a snowball going down a hill. It was unstoppable at that point. Carrie Ann Chrysler, not a bad choice. Idle hands. Hillel, also feel lucky that I don't have any hell trauma to get over. Yeah, I got a feeling I'm pretty lucky on that too. I'm not so lucky in other respects, but the hell thing was definitely a dodge bullet, and I feel really sorry for people who have had to deal with getting over that. I mean, my wife is one of them, and it's not pretty. It's not easy. It's very traumatizing. Yep, a logo, nice. I will show that in my next stream. I'm figuring out when to do my weekly stream. I've actually had a lot of fun here, especially considering I literally took 20 minutes to prepare for this, and I think it's going fairly well. I want to see what a stream will be like when I have like a full hour to prepare, where I can actually really listen to some apologist or something like that, and then just kind of go over it. Because my goal with this is I want to better articulate counterpoints to what I'm seeing here. I want to reduce idioms and vocal tics. I want to say like less, like this, like that. You do things like this, like that. I want to reduce that. I want to reduce other idioms and kind of refine my speech and my articulation and my speaking ability and just become better at this, basically. That's kind of my goal here. So, but yeah, anyway, back to the comment. I will show the logo next stream. I'm still figuring out what day the stream will regularly occur on. Saturday's pretty nice, but Saturday also kind of locks up one of my nights to hang out with friends, so I might do it on a weeknight. We'll see. Speaking to nostalgia on new converts. Polyester clothes, we went over that. It's MAGA for JW, LOL. Yeah, it is. These kids are going to freak when they see themselves reading that book in the book. Yeah, it's very meta. That's actually a really good point. They're going to see themselves reading the book in the book, but then those kids are going to see themselves reading the book in the book. And now we broke the space-time continuum, probably. The funny thing is, though, nowadays they don't use paintings like this very much anymore. They do, but they have a lot more now that the Jehovah's Witnesses have like JW Broadcasting and essentially video and photo production studios. They do a lot more live action photography and videos. The problem is the JWs, their retention rate is like 30 to 33%. 33% retention rate, especially for young ones. So whenever, let's say, they use somebody for a photograph or they use somebody in a video, and then that person goes apostate, and publicly so, they then have to go back and scrub images of that person from all of their media. And they're dealing with that right now with their governing body member that they expelled, thinking they expelled. He's no longer a governing body member, which is unheard of. And there's speculation whether he was removed or he stepped down, but they're essentially scrubbing him from their website. That's a lot of work, considering how much they have. Leah says, I am fascinated by your perspective, Eric. Thank you. I was always an atheist, but I did get caught up in 12-step cults as an adult. Yeah, I can see that happening. Humans have very flawed reasoning and very flawed epistemology, and yeah, there's all kinds of things that you can get caught up in that you aren't really prepared or trained for. And yeah, it happens. I feel really sorry for the adults that become witnesses after they've kind of grown up and become, mature people. You want to say they should know better, but then I look back and I go, well, I didn't know better. I was born and raised into it, but I can understand. I learned more philosophy. I'm not a philosopher, but I learned about philosophy. I learned about logic. I learned about syllogisms, epistemology. I learned all that as a direct result of me leaving my religion. I left and understood I need to understand why I was wrong or why this was wrong. So that drove me to learn these things. If I stayed as a Jehovah's Witness, I would have never learned these things. If I was never a Jehovah's Witness, I would also have never learned these things, because nothing would have driven me to learn these things. So yeah, I can understand if you were born just in an atheist family, just born and raised, but you aren't developing those types of you aren't developing your knowledge around that, logic, epistemology, skepticism. Yeah, something else can get you. It's kind of an indictment of our school system that we aren't teaching kids, what logic is and how to identify, just simply what a fallacy is. Just teach kids what fallacies are. Hey kids, this is the argument ad populum. Here's why it doesn't work. You don't have to apply it to anything. You don't have to apply it to religion or anything like that. Just explain that you're going to bump into people who are going to say that this is true because lots of people believe it. That's wrong. That's faulty reasoning. That's all you got to do. Just do that in elementary school. Do that in middle school. I think we see a lot fewer problems. Wednesdays are good for me. My Wednesdays are boring. I will keep that in mind, Leanne. Wednesdays might work. Maybe, yeah. I'll keep that in mind. Great stream, but gotta go, Mark. I'm going to blaspheme on this Sunday and do some work. Go for it, man. Go for it. I fully endorse blaspheming and not observing the Sabbath, even though I think the Sabbath is Saturday, right? It's sundown to sundown, Saturday. Or maybe it's end of Saturday, beginning of Sunday, basically. I can't remember. I'm not Jewish. But yes, go forth. Go forth and blaspheme. You have my blessing. Hillel says, hello, endorses Wednesday. Okay. I will do that. Hillel, only 33%. Why is it so low? Probably lots of reasons. The information age is lethal to this religion, because as a high control group, Jehovah's Witnesses need to control your information, the information you intake. We have their governing body members, their leaders on record literally saying, only go to websites we approve. Don't read news articles. Do not read news articles that are negative against us. Go ahead and read the positive ones. If a news article is positive about us, go ahead and read that. But if it's negative, no, don't read it. So the intake of information has to be controlled for them to maintain their grip on you. And that's impossible to do in the information age with the internet. I can be a witness. I can have my quiet doubts, and I can go home in the privacy of my room, away from everybody else. I can open up an incognito window and just start looking up things. Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why. There's lots of other reasons too, but yeah, 33% retention rate. And the witnesses, they're always so proud about how much they've grown since they became a group in like the 1870s. 1870s, they were started, and they were known as the Bible Students. They adopted the name Jehovah's Witnesses in 1935, I think. And now you have today, where there are probably a little over 8 million people. So it took them 150 years to go from a small group of Bible students, a few dozen probably, to only 8 million. And they will prop this up as saying, God's blessing us. Look how much we have grown. And they publish statistics on baptism. Like I don't know if they're still doing that now, but I know they were doing it for the longest time. Essentially publishing their baptism statistics, saying, we had X amount of people baptized this year, but the total number of witnesses never seemed to grow very fast. That's because of that 33% retention rate. They were for every 3 people they baptized, they lost 2 of them to reasons. So that's their growth is glacial. And in fact, the last 2 years, their growth has been in the negative. I think they lost like 0.5% of their group because of COVID and lack of converts and all that jazz. Do you feel cheated about not having birthdays as a kid? BS not accepted. Yes. The funny thing is, as a kid, I had an air or I had a sense of specialness when I was a kid. Didn't have birthdays. I didn't go to holiday assemblies. Excuse me, losing my voice. I didn't go to holiday assemblies. Didn't participate in any of that. In fact, I really enjoyed not going to holiday assemblies in elementary school because I can go to the computer lab and I could play Oregon Trail and Number Bunchers, which was way more fun than whatever those kids were doing in the auditorium. So as a kid, I didn't really mind it as much. No holidays, no birthdays, no Christmas. But now as an adult looking back, I missed out on so much. I missed out on birthdays, hanging with friends at school, hanging with friends on holiday parties. My dating life as a teenager was non-existent. My dating life in my early 20s was non-existent. So yeah, I was cheated out of quite a lot. So yeah, looking back, it does upset me every once in a while, but it is what it is. That's why I try my best to live my life to the fullest now. Eddie Dean, I need to bring my crystals inside now. They've soaked enough moonlight. I guess that means you're going to bed? If that's the case, Eddie, thank you very much for stopping by. It was good to have you here. Thanks for the super chat again, by the way. I'm going to gather up all the super chats over this stream and probably the next couple, and I'm going to try to see what good things I can do with it. So yeah, I'll keep you apprised about that. Leanne says, how do I talk to Jehovah's Witnesses now? Do I try to inject some sense into them? I actually haven't talked to a real Jehovah's Witness in a few years because none have come to my door. I don't go to them. I see them on the streets every once in a while at their kiosks and stuff, but I, for the most part, don't approach them because I'm either going to and from work and I don't have time. I probably should maybe approach one and just start asking some very simple, very straightforward questions. The problem is, though, witnesses don't. If you aren't immediately receptive to their message, or you don't appear to be, they won't really spend much time with you. They're only looking for people to convert. They aren't looking for people to debate with or to argue with. So if you're putting up resistance, if you're asking questions, little yellow flags will go up in their head, and they'll say, "Hey, we're wasting our time on this person." So they'll shoo you off and wait for somebody else to come by that's more receptive. If that's probably pretty much why I don't approach them at their carts, but I should probably maybe try just for an exercise. Cause I do want to practice more street epistemology. I do want to do this. I do want to get into more conversations like this, just to kind of hone the craft, because I'm probably, in need of a lot of practice and a lot of learning. So, yeah, I've been for a few years now, I've been kind of sitting here at my house with my jaws open, waiting for prey to fall into it, but I should maybe go out actively search. And the problem is too is like I said, the only place you can really find witnesses are at their carts. There's no like forum you can kind of go and officially talk to them where you're like actually invited. You have to kind of go up as a stranger and talk to them that way. BS not accepted says, if you don't mind me asking, do you vote now? Yes, I do. I do vote. I was politically neutral all throughout being a witness because that's what witnesses are. They just don't get involved in politics. But yes, I am a voter now. I live in Washington. Every 6 months or so, we get a pamphlet in the mail with all the candidates that are currently in the current election, and I do my research and I fill in the dot on the paper and I mail it in, and I've voted. Pragmatic Crystal, 100%. Thanks. You're welcome, Leanne. Hillel says, I miss talking to theists. It's been a solid few years since I've talked about theology with anyone. Yeah. Yeah, same here. That's one of the reasons why I started this channel, is I want to talk about it. I want to exercise my conversational skills more. I want to sharpen my knowledge of these subjects. I want to learn counter-apologetics and all that. Eric, have you heard about recovering from religion? I have. Recovering from religion. Recovering from religion provides support and resources to people coping with doubt, seeking answers about religion, and living without faith. Yeah. This is reminiscent of the Clergy Project, which is geared towards religious leaders and pastors who deconvert but find themselves unable to come out and say so because their livelihood essentially depends on this. Cool. Eddie Dean, Washington. I'm from Seattle. Well, hey there, neighbor. I live near the Seattle area, so that's great. Weather's starting to warm up a little bit. I'm enjoying it. Hello. Last time I was in Seattle, I was on those duck boat thingies. Yeah, the ducks. That's kind of they're gone now. I think COVID basically killed that tourism service, and they had problems to begin with too. Those were amphibious vehicles from Vietnam or something, and they were all retrofitted to be used as essentially tourist buses in downtown and also on the Sound. Like, they would go into the water and out of the water because they're amphibious vehicles. I think they had a few accidents, got some controversy around them, and then COVID hit, and I think that's what did them in, but they're gone now, unfortunately. But yeah, I remember the duck boats. The duck boats, the pickup drop-off for the duck boats, it was right next to the Space Needle, which I would spend a lot of time around that area several years ago. Yeah, I miss them. I remember seeing them a lot. All right, that's it for the chat. We're at the end of the chat. That was fun. And we're coming up on 2 hours here. Does anybody have anything they want me to discuss, or we can go ahead and end it here? I will give about 10 seconds to let anybody decide. And I'm thinking, if we do a Wednesday broadcast, I might start inviting people on to talk if they're interested in that. Last week I had Ember on as kind of a test guinea pig for the StreamYard stuff, but we'll have maybe a guest on. They can talk directly if they want. Okay, so nothing going on in chat anymore. So yeah, I think we'll probably call that good. That's been a solid 2 hours. I learned a little bit about StreamYard. We talked a little bit about a video, and I got to know you fine folks a little bit better. So it was a nice night. As always, it's nice to chat and hang out with y'all. I hope this can be every so often. Yeah, Hillel, absolutely. I'll get a solid day put into place, and then just every week we'll have a 1 or 2 hour chat. So, all right. Thanks, everyone. Catch you later. Have a good night. Sleep well. Enjoy your weekend. Bye.